Well, cold shooting out of the gate. The Wolverines warm up and they take the first game of their two-game West Coast swing by 10. 82-72, the final in Seattle. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in to the Michigan Basketball Postgame Live Show. Yeah, a late one. If you stayed up for this one, you're a night owl or you live out on the West Coast, whatever the case may be, probably listening to this one back in the morning, maybe shoveling your snow if you're in the state of Michigan, as we were blanketed last night. And we're ready to talk about this game where Michigan wins it, and now they run their record to 15-1. They bounce back from their loss on Saturday to Wisconsin. It wasn't the just parade coronation where they look like they had in a lot of their that was, I don't know, 11-game streak where they were just demolishing everyone. That was not the case tonight, but they just kept inching away from Washington and were able to win this one comfortably. They did not cover the spread, if that was something that you were looking for, but they do win by double digits. And I was looking at this road trip and thinking they'd probably drop one of these games, probably, if you're thinking about it, where Oregon's at. Oregon just got one win in the conference, Washington with two. It'd probably have been this one. So they're looking pretty good from where I'm sitting as I watched this game. Although, there were things where you're watching and you're thinking, hey, this is a team that's favored to win the national championship. Late game out there in Seattle. And, I saw UW and I was like, wait a second, Wisconsin. Well, that's Washington too. Michigan, they got it going, a cold start, especially from downtown, cold start from Yaks as well. And the Huskies got it to within 5 in the second half. Their big men, their best player, Steinbeck, got hit with his fourth foul. That was big. Although, on the other side, Michigan, Elliot Cadeau, he ended up getting 4 personals and a bunch of, I'd have to look at every single one of them, but one of them, the opposing guard, looked like he elbowed Cadeau in the throat, and I thought, oh, well, that's a charge, and he got hit. I think that was his second one. And then late in the game, looked like he was playing pretty good defense, just staying with his man, guarding him as the Washington player was taking him to the hole. And he got called for, what you'd say a ticky-tack foul. And what we saw against Wisconsin, you say, well, what's the recipe to beat Michigan? Getting Cadeau in foul trouble is a pretty good one, where if you're the opponent, you say, that's what we want to do. We want to get him into foul trouble. And, that, and then, Michigan shooting cold, that would be another one, so guarding the three. Those would be two things. But, Michigan with this one, you really do go back to the first half. Both teams, it was Michigan couldn't buy one from downtown early on until Trey McKinney finally broke the seal. But it was also Washington was the same way. Michigan it was 0 for 9, 0 for 10, and then they hit one, and then Washington was but they weren't able to hit one either. And you end up looking at it from downtown, 3 of 16, 4 of 19 from 3-point range. That's what it ended up being. The Huskies shot 33 on the game. They only ended up with 9. Michigan would only make a couple more threes, 5 of 23. Yeah, they'll want to do better. You can say, what are you looking for here? You want to shoot better from downtown, that's for sure. Morris Johnson Jr. had 8 points and 11 boards at the break. Ade Mara was good early and late. He had 8 in the first half, and Yaks was really cold to start the game. Couldn't get it going from distance, couldn't get it going down low. Then he got 7 in a row, all in like a 90-second span late in the first half. in this one as Michigan went with their normal starting five. Michigan, you know, are they the greatest team of all time? Even McLean, who is the color analyst, who I was watching the Big Ten Network tonight, and I thought, who's this old guy? And then I looked it up, it was McLean. I'm like, oh, he's the same age as me. I'm like, wow, man. Oops. He looked all right. He looked pretty good. I remember old McLean could shoot from outside. Michigan's a very good team. McLean was saying it at the beginning. He said, this is analytically, statistically, this is the greatest team I've ever seen. That's what people say when they look at the numbers. You sit there and look at the stat sheet and compare it, their efficiencies and everything else. And they have that going for them. That's nice. That's a nice thing to have going for you, where you look at all the different ways to measure besides the final score and your eye test. You're looking at all the different things in the analytics that you can find. And Michigan, they do a nice job. The best thing they do is they guard and they're unselfish. But here's the thing: they raised the bar so high starting out the season with those 14 wins. I think people expect this team to come out and be the Showtime Lakers or be the running Rebels from back in the day, where they're going to smash everyone to smithereens and they're going to win all these games by 40. And it was just like when they were doing all of this, it wasn't realistic that they were going to go undefeated, even though in the back of your mind somewhere you're thinking, hey, you could always hope. I think there was that hope, and it was such a fun ride. It was the same thing with scoring 100 points every night and beating everybody by 40 and having the games over by halftime. You're like, this is such a treat. This is so fun. Well, now it's like it normally is, even for good teams. You go on the road and it's not going to be pretty all the way through. It's not just going to be this layup line. It's not going to be this, this perfect poetry in motion as you watch Michigan. I don't think. Maybe they'll get into the tournament and they'll do like UConn did a couple years ago, and they'll just run and hide from everyone, and they'll just blow everyone out on their way to Indianapolis and win the national title. I hope they do that. That'd be fun. But it's more likely that they're going to be, a game like tonight where you start cold, you get some foul trouble, you get up by double figures, but then the other team makes a push. That's what you normally see in basketball. Even if you're the better team, you get up and the other team's going to make a little bit of a run. They're going to get, the crowd's going to get behind them, and they're going to get close, maybe even tie it up. Now, Washington was able to cut it to 7 and cut it to 5 in the second half, but then Michigan was able to inch back out, like I said, and win this one. So that's what I was looking at tonight. Those are some of my thoughts. We have the upcoming schedule. We have the player of the game. We'll also take your feedback as well. We'll look at the individual numbers of this game. Let's go right to the Maize and Blue Review player of the game, and that's the big man, Ade Mara, who had 20 points, kind of a bunch of jams, pick and roll with Cadeau, and he was going up and sailing into the rim and throwing it down, hanging on the rim, guys underneath him. He looked sweet doing it. A couple boards, couple assists, and a couple swats for Mara, who earns the coveted Maize and Blue Review player of the game. Go get him, give him the chef's cap, and let him cook some paella while he's out in the Great Northwest, while they are sitting out there. They don't play for a couple days. Let's see it from Mara. Let's get some of these the feedback in, and then we will look at the box score. Prepare that for you. If I promise it, I want to deliver the box score. And will I be able to? The answer to that is yes. Yes, I will be able to deliver it. One part when you do a show at 1:00 in the morning, you get different people coming in and watching live. We're on after every game, but a lot of people do things like work. And so they get up, and some people keep different hours. Not Ripstar is up at 1:00 in the morning. In fact, he might be the only. Oh, no, he's not the only one that's up in the morning. But let's look and see what not Ripstar crunching some numbers. Late in the game, the announcer said Michigan was shooting 65% in the second half from the field. Johnson Jr. made a bucket right after that. When you look at it, 46%, not Ripstars, looking at the field goal percentage for the entire game, and then looking at that 22% from downtown, and also rolling out the Huskies shooting percentages and the 27% from deep. That's the 9 of 33 and 38%. Those numbers check out as I take a look at it, but it was Michigan not really looking for the three. It was pick and roll, and I thought they made a concerted effort to get the ball. You say this a lot when you have a star player, give them a touch. But I think they went even the extra step and said, let's get him in different spots. Talking about Yaks. He's a 3 and he can shoot, but the other things that he can do, he can really drive. He's good in the open floor, and he can post guys up. And they went a little bit to that, and I like that. If he's not dialing it in from downtown, and they're not really getting him in out on the break, well, put him down in that post and throw him the ball. He can take anyone in college basketball down in the post. And so, yeah, put him down there and throw it to him. And he's a good passer out of the post too. And I definitely saw that from Dusty May and company in the second half. Rip pointing out a bounce back performance by Michigan's defense. No doubt about it. Washington, the funny part is you look at it and they had some pretty good looks when you're watching them shoot those threes and they're just not going down. Danny Sprinkle, who was beside himself with the officials most of that game, they'd show close-ups to him. He's like, hey, you could read his lips. He was incensed at the calls, but I like the man to quit. Of course, he knocked down 3 of the 4 triples that he shot. Michigan will spend a night in Seattle. That's good. You don't want to be taken off. The team's probably just getting out of the showers right now. You could hit the bus at 1:30. You could be on your plane, and wheels up at 2:00 in the morning. What's it from Eugene to Seattle? What's that? An hour flight? Not much. I've been on that flight. But you get into Eugene at 3:00 in the morning. You're at your hotel. No, you stay at Seattle. That's the good eye. It's a good idea. That's good planning by Dusty and company. Ripstar like that alley-oop tomorrow being the icing on the cake. Let's see what some others have to say. Under Par said Michigan has settled in. This is who they are. Probably will settle in between number 5 and number 10 in the country. Elliott with 0 points is terrible. Well, he does have that goose egg there. He did run into some foul trouble, so there is something there. Here's the thing. I'd say interesting. It's a good point of discussion. When you see that goose egg, I think when it comes down to Cadeau, and you're saying they'll settle in between number 5 and number 10, look, the other teams are going to lose too. And I think if I had to bet, I would say that. So I'm going to disagree with what you're saying here. I'll say that Michigan at one point will rise to be the number 1 team in the country. Now, will they be the number 1 overall seed? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe not. But they're in with a chance there. Sure. I don't think Arizona is going, wire to wire. But the part about settling in with who they are settling in. They're not the greatest team ever, and that's what they showed during that winning streak. That's what they were doing to opponents, stuffing them in a closet, taking the belt out, that's not going to be it. So I agree with that part, but between 5 and 10 the whole time, no, I think that they're better than that. And while Elliott, call him out, but foul trouble was the big culprit. And when you look at his shots, his 3-point shot looks pretty good. And if you can win with him going goose egg, then I think they're going to be all right with Cadeau. I think you call having 0 points terrible. All right. He's still a hell of a player, and that kind of stuff can happen. Michigan go blue 1, 2, 3, 4 says Gale was huge. Gale had 9 points off the bench, 4 boards, 5 assists. That's a pretty good stat line. Dusty called Gale. He said not this week, the week before. He couldn't imagine a better 6-man in the league. And he's like a starter. We know what he can do and his value. I'll criticize Gale for his fashion choice. I don't like, and there've been a few players, some of my favorite players I see him do, and I'm like, oh no. Gale with the faux pas of rolling with the red shoe, left shoe, blue right shoe. Now I know they're two-tone, so when you see him on the one side, that's what it looks like. It's red and blue. And then you watch him on the other side, it's blue and red. So it's kind of split in the middle, but it looks stupid. They look like clown shoes. But he's not the first one to deploy those and try them out and make that fashion statement. But I hate it. I think it looks ridiculous. Have your shoe that's showing that whatever side shoe, have it the same color. I like the highlight or the highlighter type shoes. Those look kind of sweet. Almost like all shoes, except one red, one blue. It looks ridiculous. But hey, that's when you play well, like, maybe break out the red and blue shoe again. Break it out. Under par, saying if you look at the box score, the team looks like the best on the court. They seem much different. The Borg is here. Yaxel? Yax, I think they need to, and I think they discovered tonight, Yax is a very unselfish player. He lets the game come to him. Those are all good qualities to have, but he's so good that you need to call plays for him. You need to not just, swing it around, let it get a feel, maybe he'll be on the break, he'll get it. No. Put him down on the post and throw him the ball. Don't just, it's not calling a play for him if you're just swinging it around the outside and playing freelance. Make Yaxel, get him going to the basket, and the easiest way to call a play for him, you can clear it out. He's good that way. I like that. Set him a pick. I like that. Get him in the pick and roll, or just throw it down to him in the post. I've said that 5 times. I'm not going to say it again. If I do, blame it on the early morning. It's not a bad idea. Can I put, they used to call Coke Classic, put that in the Borg? My daughter was telling me about what they put in Borgs. I won't be putting that kind of stuff in a Borg. Morris Johnson Jr., this is true. He is a beast. He's a beast on the board. He's a beast athletically. He makes plays at times where he'll block a shot with his left hand. He'll go get the loose ball. He'll bring it up the floor. He can dunk. He's a tremendous player. Love him. Love Morez Johnson Jr. And I'll go back to what I've been saying since the beginning of the year. Michigan's front line, if there's a superpower, that's what it is. They got all of these guys with over 7 feet reaches. Of course, Mara got the 9'9", standing reach, but Morez, he's listed at 6'9", but he's got a 7'2" reach, and Yax has got a 7'4" reach. And those guys, they disrupt defensively. They're all a little bit different, and they're all awesome. And Michigan's got 3 of those guys. That is a tremendous advantage. That's why I feel like that they could win it all. When you have people say, well, what's it take in the NCAA tournament? Usually one of the first things people say is guard play. And so that's Michigan will need better guard play, tighter guard play. I would agree with that. I think they have the guards, tighter guard play. To our one, I was going to call him my boy, under par. It's my boy. To his point, you can't be putting up goose eggs if you're Cadeau and it's a one and you're done type situation, in a tournament type situation. Amazing to have that winning feeling again. Last Saturday's loss was tough to deal with. Yeah, you're right. Back on the good side. That's the thing. I was looking at the last 5 national champions in basketball, and on average, they had 5 losses for the year. Now, Florida last year, I believe, had 3. There was a team in the last 5 years, I think it was UConn, that had 8. And so UConn went back to back, right? So it wasn't the 2 years ago, it was a 3-year ago team. But if you average it out, I did it. 5 losses. Now, it was such an incredible start. You wanted it to keep going. It was so fun. Posted the hundreds, beating teams by 40. That the first loss, it felt like a football loss. But you're going to have a loss. But yeah, let's see him rip off another 10 in a row or something like that. The games, which we will get to in the schedule. Oh, now it's most people. You guys are all, if you're watching this at 1:30 in the morning or whatever it is, 1:23 in the morning, you're listening back to this early in the morning. Huge Michigan basketball fans, huge college basketball fans. Most people, they don't watch basketball in January. They might start watching some Michigan State. They'll take a peek, but they just they're watching football. And not everyone can watch all the football, all the basketball. But what my point is that most people wait till football's over, and then they transition to, football's over. There's football blues. I get that. And then they start watching college basketball. And Michigan Go Blue 1-3-2-4. He's tripping me up on that. Is not one of those. He's been watching every single game. Joe. What's Joe got there? I can't make out the photo. Is he got a picture of the Pope, or is he in the band? My eyes need to get checked there. I can't tell what's going on there. There's a crowd. Good win tonight, Joe says. Good job with the after game show, Dennis. You got to be one of the hardest working Michigan podcasters. Well, thanks. Thanks for that. Do it for Bob. I've been watching over the last couple days on social media. They've had John Mayer and Bob out, and it looks like just could be some field or something, just standing around playing their guitars for like 10 or 15 minutes. I've enjoyed it. beat Sparty. There you go. Let's get to that. Wear the all black shoes. I don't know if there is a team that everyone wears the same shoes. They like having their individuality. Now they all have to wear whatever, if they're Michigan is a Nike school. And I noticed that Washington was an Adidas school. So they're all having to, wear the Adidas. I had a pair of forums back in the day. Twisted my ankle pretty good in them. But yeah, the Fab Five all wore, when I was in high school, we all wore the same shoes. As seniors, we wore Kangaroos. Kangaroos never made it very far. The only thing, they weren't a great shoe, but they had one feature. They looked pretty cool. They were all right that way, but they looked pretty cool. But the one feature they had on the tongue, they had a pouch, like a kangaroo pouch. And, you couldn't put a lot in there, maybe a key or $20 bill, $50, $100 bill. That was it. But they weren't a great shoe. And they might have, I think they went out of business after that. Off the sauce and won't chug the Borg. I have reduced a lot of the things that were keeping me at a certain point, trying to lose weight. But so I've cut down 90% on a lot of things. So 90% less of things like soda, beer, sugar, flour, 90% less. Feel pretty good. Do I see Yaks being a top 10 pick? I think it's to be determined. If the draft was right now, I think he would be. I could see him being a top 15. So I would say no. But usually, I was going to say I talked to many GMs. That's not true. But I have talked to some GMs back in the day. And when I worked for the Pistons, Scott Perry, he's still a GM in the league, isn't he? There's a lot of David Chad, guys like that, Joe D. But the mistake a lot of us make is a guy will have a great tournament. You say, and they don't put as much emphasis on a tournament run as we do. But I think with Yaks, what he has shown thus far, his ability to step out and be a 3, he's definitely moved himself up into the first round. If he was a fringe first rounder, now he's definitely in the first round. But these last couple of games, now he's been banged up. I know people speculated it's his back, but it's his calf, and then even in the game tonight, he started out rocky. And he's not able to shoot. And he's putting up a goose egg, and you're thinking, well, this guy doesn't look like a first. If you're a scout and you're sitting in the stands and you're watching Yaks, you're saying this guy's not a first round pick. And then you saw him rip off those 7 points in a row in that 90-second span, and you're like, all right, this is a little bit. And then in the second half, you say, oh, okay, throwing, he's scoring from everywhere out on the court. But to go against what those GMs would say, if he takes this and has Michigan as a number 1 seed and he's a player of the year candidate, and then he puts him on there, I don't know, he's not a put you on your back type player, but if he shows out in the tournament, then I could see him being a top 10 pick, despite what I said about those guys not putting enough, or they don't put the emphasis that we do. Maybe they should. And that's the big stage. Put more emphasis on the tourney. Let's look at some of these numbers. We'll take more of your feedback. I love it. I love the feedback. I like that you're giving it. But we'll mix it up a little bit here. There's our player of the game, Mara, 20 points, 2 boards, 2 assists, 3 blocks. and he is got his chef cap on, and he's making some paella. How about MJJ 16-16? What's the last time you saw something like that? I don't remember. 16-16, made all 4 of his free throws, had 2 steals and a block. Woo! You know, if it wasn't for Mara capturing our player of the game, it would have been MJJ. How about this front line? 20, 16, and then 14 for Yaks. 14, 7, a steal, and a block. That triumphant was spectacular. Put all those numbers together. Put the field goals together. MJJ, 50% from the field. Mara, shooting over 90% from the field. Amazing. Namari took a hard fall, landed on his hip. That didn't look good, but he was back on the bench. He was all right. Hit a 3, 7 points for Namari. Here's Cadeau, the goose egg, the foul trouble. Ended up with 6 assists, but 0 of 5 from the field, including 0 of 3 from downtown. Gale was a savior. 9, 4, and 5, and 2 steals. Did have 3 turnovers. You expect to see that. Cheddar, a lot of people don't want to see Cheddar out there as much, and I get that. 15 minutes. He did come in when Michigan he didn't hit their first 3, but he did end up hitting a 3. He got some good looks. Is there going to be a stretch of games where Cheddar comes in and heats up from downtown? We have not seen it. He has not been the Will Cheddar from last year. He has not been very good this year, and Cheddar's my guy. I like 10 Cheddars, but Dusty must think that he's got a hot streak in him somewhere because he keeps playing him 7 points and a board. LJ Kaysen, not bad. 6, 2, and 3 from LJ Kaysen. Trey McKinney, he's a freshman. He hit that 3 to break the seal for the Maize and Blue, but 3 points and 2 boards. He'll have better nights, obviously. He's pretty good when it comes down to it. Trey McKinney is also picked up a tech when he was throwing the ball and ended up hitting the ref. That'll get you a tech. I always liked, who was it? Was it the late Jim Valvano, who went up to the official and said, "Hey, can you give me a tech for what I'm thinking?" And the ref looked at him and said, "I don't think so." And he said, "Well, because I think you blanket suck." And he got teed up. But he said the ref smiled at him, and it was a funny story. Rip's got not only Yaks in the lottery, but has him going to the Blazers. Okay. Kurt C says, did Cadeau even play? Give me Washington's guard any day over Cadeau. So you want Peterson, who had 13, or Diallo? I think this, tonight, I see what you're saying there. The one dude, Peterson, looked like he had a really nice jumper. There's no doubt about that. I like the name Zoom Diallo, but let's keep track of that, Curtis. I'll take Cadeau, and you can have Zoom Diallo, and you can come up short in all the games, and then you can watch Cadeau play defense, and then have some breakout games, and not put up that goose egg and take Michigan to the national championship, and you can be left on the side of the road. But hey, I see what you're saying. When you just got to take it if you're Cadeau and the criticism. So that's it. I agree with the Jordan brand and the Jumpman being so much cooler than these Adidas schools. I go back, Michigan, whatever that stretch was, it was with Brady Hoke. You'll see people still sporting some of that. And I think I have a few things. And you just with the Michigan, you see the Adidas stuff, and you're like, yeah, that stuff just doesn't look anywhere close to what you got when it comes to looking at that Adidas. Could have had Nikes, Adidas, Converse, and you go with Kangaroo. Yeah. Yeah, it was not bad. Scott Perry's still out there for the Sacramento Kings. It's my guy. If you ever hear me saying, I talked with a GM recently, that's probably going to be the guy that I talked with. And a lot of those floating around, but his number's still good. I like that. When Morez goes to the line, I feel so calm and confident he'll hit them both. Yeah, well, he is a really good free throw shooter. He made all 4 tonight. Let's just see if we get a quick look at what his free throw percentage is on the season. Over 80%. The interesting thing, I'm looking at it, last year, he was 62% on the season. Now he's shooting 80%. And you're talking about a jump. That's a jump. No doubt about it. Let's look at some of those numbers. Yeah, Michigan doesn't have that number 2 ranking anymore. They went to number 4. There they are at number 4 in the AP poll. They still stay number 1 in KenPom. Still the number 1 team in KenPom. The offensive efficiency at 7, defensive efficiency number 1. So even though they dropped the game, and even though they're not undefeated anymore, they're still the number 1 KenPom efficiency over those teams that are undefeated. How about that? Even with the net, the NCAA evaluation tool that you use, and you start getting those quads and all that kind of stuff there, Michigan is still number 1. Disregard the photo way over to the left. What you do want to zoom in on is the numbers all the way to the right. Those are current. Now this one has Michigan number 1, so that one's right. But it's Michigan, Arizona, Duke, Vandy, I was watching a little bit of that game tonight. They were losing. I don't know if they came back to win or not. And then Gonzaga. Those are the top 5 in the net when it comes down to it. Now let's get the upcoming schedule, and that is brought to you by the show and the feed that you are watching right now, the Maize and Blue Review. Give yourself or that U of M fan in your life the gift of the Maize and Blue Review. Go to on3.com, hit that subscribe button. You want to know what's going on in the portal? Portal's just got one more day where you can jump in. Is Michigan going to grab a couple more linebackers, a linebacker, another defensive lineman? They've been working that portal. What do they have in surprise? It's not just over on the 16th. In another week or so after that, they'll probably be adding players, not subtracting them, but you want to know about all of that ahead of time and accurately. Well, here it is. It's the Maize and Blue Review. Go to on3.com and get that done. Now, let's look at that upcoming schedule. Michigan off until Saturday. They're going to, I was talking about football before. See, they're running smack dab up against the divisional round on Saturday. Michigan at Oregon. That's a 4:00 jump. We'll be with you just like we are after every game. After that Michigan-Oregon game. Then home for IU, and then the game that I'm looking forward to against Ohio State. That one is on the 23rd. That is 8:00. That is a Friday, and that is the day that Michigan will send Trey Burke's jersey to the rafters. So Trey Burke Day, the Columbus, Ohio native, gets his jersey sent to the rafters when Michigan plays Ohio State No coincidence. There is a coincidence there. That's what I meant to say. So, yeah, Trey Burke. It'll be fun to reminisce about Trey. Michigan versus Ohio State. Let's go. And then there's some games towards this is the rest of their schedule for the month. Then Nebraska, who I believe is still undefeated. And then there's Michigan State, an 8:00 start on January the 30th. Now let's go. Let's do it. I hope we beat Ohio State by 40. I'll take a 40-point dub against Ohio State. Give me a big win. Give me a double-digit win on the road at Michigan State. Out of all of these, yeah, you want wins in all of them. But if there's one where they want to play their best and come away with a victory and an impressive one, do it against Michigan State. That's what everybody wants. Let's be honest about it. Honesty is the way to go. Thanks so much for watching, participating. And again, we're here after every Michigan basketball game. It's been a fun ride. They're back on the good side. Put a smile on your face. And they're going to do it again Saturday, a matinee out in Eugene. We'll be with you after this game, after that game, just like we were for this one. And once again, the final from out in Seattle. Michigan 82, Washington 72. Good night, everybody.